Welcome back to the Countertop podcast. This is going to be a podcast where we kind of bring topics to the table and discuss them. It could be funny, random, all over the place. We're just a couple people chatting it up. And as you can see, we are down a person. Someone decided to go play golf and ignore us this weekend for our recording. So I was going to give him a buzz, but he's probably too drunk right now to answer his phone. So once again, Countertop Podcast. If this is your first time listening, go make sure to check out our other videos, our other Spotify or Apple Music, any of the other kind of major podcasting sites. So I'm going to start it off to kind of see if we have any housekeeping from last episode, anything that we need to touch on, update, add to. So I think Ray, you may have something.
Yeah, we had talked a little bit last week about the ATF issuing a cease and desist to Q about their honey badger pistol. And over the last week and a half or so, the Department of Justice put a hold on that for 60 days while they look into it. They haven't released a whole lot since then, so it's not in effect for now, but it almost just kind of seems like they're trying to get past the election with this hold before they actually have to look into anything. So we'll see what happens with it, but that's really the only major update on it so far.
So has Q released any more statements about any of it at all, or is it just more the DOJ?
Yeah, not really any statements.
Okay.
They're doing a little social media campaign against the ATF, but
Which they need.
yeah,
They have to do something, and hopefully,
anything helps.
which it'll be
Just getting the
interesting.
word out.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see whoever wins the election. Does that affect the DOJ's response to this, or is it going to be actually the DOJ handling it?
Yeah, it'll be
So,
interesting.
in both presidents, there's qualms with both of them and firearms, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to kind of see what pans out there. So, any other housekeeping from you?
No, that was it.
Okay. I don't have anything other than that. I would ask Tanner. Tanner? Oh wait, he's not here. So I'll jump in with my topic. Kind of wanted to talk to you about kind of the perfect storm, at least I feel like, with the website OnlyFans. It seems like this kind of came out of nowhere, or not necessarily came out of nowhere, but it was a slow growing website, and then all of a sudden it exploded, and pretty much everyone in a household knows what OnlyFans is. Maybe not that they've subscribed, but they know of it.
Yeah,
And so I kind of found it interesting that you have this website that kind of came out of nowhere, and then you had this pandemic on top of it, and then also now you're adding to the fact people aren't working or people are looking to get money, and sex sells. And I know OnlyFans, well, based on what they describe their site as, is it's not just it's adult entertainment. It can be cooking,
yeah,
it can be crafting. Like it almost seems like a Patreon.
it is. It was meant
Um,
to compete with Patreon. I know that.
yeah, and so
Especially for a lot of the types of things that Patreon has started going after in the last year or so.
well, because Patreon's kind of done left wing, right wing banning of
Yeah,
what they choose.
yeah,
It seems like so OnlyFans may be the more wild west of them all, but
yeah,
and then all of a sudden it explodes into this OnlyFans adult industry where one we've never really seen a competitor to the adult industry besides the adult industry. You know, way back when there was websites that you would go to, but nowadays porn is free,
yeah,
and now you're having something that people are actually buying into where before, so it's kind of shaking up the industry.
yeah,
So I thought it was, your opinion on it altogether, what your thoughts are. I did kind of look into the statistics. They're paying out 80% and they're taking 20. So it seems somewhat fair to some degree that you're doing that. But then I also found it interesting. OnlyFans doesn't promote. There's
yeah,
not really a promotion to that, and so you're having to do all of that as well. So really, it's just a hosting site that's taking 20% of your profits.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a fair cut in my opinion, 20% for a service like that. I'm not sure what Patreon takes.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure it's close to that. But maybe you get, maybe their take's a little less because it's not the Wild Wild West.
yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. But yeah, I know there's no advertising or anything like that to it, but it is definitely, and since users don't have to pay to host a website on Patreon or OnlyFans or anything like that, you're kind of saving yourself, if you're on it, the headache of creating and maintaining a website and gaining traffic to it and stuff like that. So even though they might not directly advertise, it's still going to be able, if you're on the website, it's going to be easier to find other creators that are using Patreon as a platform compared to just trying to find someone's website
Yeah,
through word of mouth or online search or something like that.
yeah.
So I think that's the biggest benefit, and that is the service that they're capitalizing on as far as their 20% cut.
Well, and I guess I just feel like it, from what I've done, read up on, is it, not providing a platform to, because I look at Facebook, I look at Instagram, I look at um, all these others that you can kind of pay into ads and all of that, which and
Yeah,
maybe that changes the entire website once you go down that route that your smaller creators won't get noticed because of the bigger ones, but at the same time, they don't have a platform to push you to get followers. You have to do all of that on your own. So
yeah,
I thought that it's kind of a strange concept because I feel like if you were to do a different site where you could buy ads, what's stopping that from taking off? You know,
yeah, that's
compared
true.
to
I think it's just because building a following from the ground up on just through normal social media platforms is a little bit harder to do these days,
yeah,
especially with a lot of, like we talked about last week, the suppression of some people's opinions and pages and stuff like that through other social media means. It's just hard for some platforms to get a fan base,
yeah.
if you want to call it that.
Yeah, no, and it's once you get it, it's organic, which is nice, and you have that community as
Yeah,
well. And I know it's OnlyFans where it could be adult content, but you're still gonna have that community where you may not
yeah,
elsewhere. And um, it is interesting, And then like with Bella Thorne, that she went on, it's probably 3 or 4 months ago, but made $1 billion in
yeah,
like a day,
yep,
and they had to put a
yeah.
cap on
It's
what
insane.
what they could give people. So
Yeah,
it's interesting just the availability to whoever wants to do this gets to do it, and you sign
yeah.
up, you're either a creator or a subscriber, and you're done.
Yeah, and anyone can access it as long as they're, if it's adult content, they got to be of legal age. But
Yeah,
as far as everything else, anyone can get on it and pay to subscribe to someone that's got a foundation there.
yeah.
And I
Well,
actually did. I found Patreon's fees, by the way. They charge a 5% flat fee to use the platform, but then they also have payment gateway fees when people pay for
so when they
Patreon,
pledge
so
to
they're
your
making money. Yep.
page, they get a cut of that too.
So they're making that, and they're making fees on payout. So when you transfer to your bank account, they're taking a cut of that as well, which they don't give a percentage here. It just says depends on
So that
transfer of
twenty
funds.
percent may not be too far off of what Patreon's doing as well once you break
Yeah,
it down,
seems like Patreon's probably a little bit less.
but you
Uh,
don't get that explicit content
yeah,
that
you're not able
where
to
OnlyFans is
post whatever
taken
you
off.
want.
Yeah. It is interesting. It'd be interesting to like talk to the CEO or the creator of it to kind of
Yeah,
their image to what it's become today. Because I don't think I've seen or heard somebody being like, "Oh, I get on there and play my guitar and come watch me," And I'm sure there are people there. I know there's e-girls and those things that cosplay, kind of like your Patreon, but have moved over to OnlyFans, but it's still non-nudity, but still
yeah.
kind of an interesting concept. But kind of tie it back to the first point of being, is this the perfect storm for this business to take off?
I mean, I think it is for sure.
And
Obviously, working from home and a lot of people losing their jobs and stuff like that. People who are comfortable, especially with the adult content side of things, have moved towards it. Uh, and I mean, I don't know personally, but I've heard stories of people making all kinds of money on it since the quarantine started, especially because people are stuck at home and
mm-hmm.
therefore consuming digital content more than other forms of content that they
Yeah,
might have went after before.
And I'm trying to think of like another business that took off like that. The
I mean,
perfect storm.
I know Twitch and YouTube to an extent did. I know there were huge booms in Twitch streamers as far as uh, followers and just the amount of people that they were exposed to. That base grew significantly, literally as soon as people started being sent home to work and getting
Yeah,
laid off and stuff like that.
which makes sense, and a lot of people cutting cable or
Yeah,
cut. That's becoming more and more of a thing.
yeah.
And then kind of tying this all to like society's norms, is this pushing us more towards a acceptance of sex work and adult work? Does this change? Because I guarantee there's people on there that would have never thought of doing this without the pandemic.
I mean, I think it's helping in that aspect, but you're always going to have the people that bash anyone who makes that kind of content online for
Yeah,
money
yeah,
for
of
whatever
course.
reason. So it's obviously going to take more to change that mindset of people who are just fundamentally against it.
Hmm.
But I think it's creating more awareness for the fact that this exists and people can make money on it.
Yeah,
So I think you're right. People who might not have even considered it before because they didn't know about it might be more keen to look into doing it
yeah,
now.
because you have to look at it from like a sex worker on the streets, the dangers there, but then also, okay, go work for a porn industry or a porn company, and all of the horrific stories you've heard
Yeah,
there. Now you got to work for yourself and do
yeah.
whatever you want.
It's a lot less risk involved.
Yeah, and so I feel
It's
like that piece is kind of changing kind of the culture of how people see that side of that work. And of course, you know, uh, some people have agreements and disagreements of,
yeah.
people can do whatever they want with their bodies and so on and so forth. And some people disagree with that. But at the same time, I think it's kind of changing culturally
Yeah.
how people see things.
And I think that aspect alone of people not having to work with someone that they might not want to work with just to get their name out there and stuff like that. I think that whole side of things is changing too because they're basically independent contractors working for themselves. So they get to pick who they want to work with,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
They don't have to go through agencies and be set up with other actors that they don't know if they're clean or not and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Do you think long term, you know, with kind of what has happened, well, with the I can't even speak, coronavirus, the pandemic, once this kind of goes away, do you think that changes? You know, is this too soon for where our world's at today? In a sense of going to look for more work and because these days you've heard it a million times. Don't post something on the internet that you don't want others to see
Yeah.
because you could, not get a job. You could, lose your job. You could have issues. Is this too soon for us not accepting people this way? Where you're going to have people regretting because there are going to be creators on that platform that don't make enough money or a name for themselves
Yeah.
that have to go find a normal job. That oops, all of a sudden I stumbled upon your OnlyFans. That kind
Yeah.
of
I think it might be a little too early to tell for sure on that, but I think that's one advantage people see of the platform is that it's behind a paywall.
yeah,
So just because a potential employer or partner or something like that might find your name on a OnlyFans page on the internet somewhere, even if it's not active anymore, they can't see what the content was
yeah,
necessarily. So they're not going to know for sure if it was adult content because the platform is not just for adult
yeah.
content.
That's true.
So even if they were to believe it was, I think it'd be an easy rebuttal just saying, oh no, I posted cooking or DIY videos on there
Yeah,
during the pandemic to make a little bit of income.
yeah.
So I
No,
mean, it's an interesting aspect because I think it could affect people negatively depending on where society goes after that. It
mm-hmm.
could be seen as a uh, industry of necessity at the time.
Yeah,
They might give people a pass for that. It was the only way they were able to support their families through a pandemic or something like
yeah.
that. So
I would hope people would be accepting. That's one, especially if you're making assumptions for something you don't know, where it is a
yeah,
paywall, where you're not going to be able to find it, just like Facebook. I'm sure I'm sure there's ways, but not
Yeah.
legal ways. So, well, I think we've exhausted that topic pretty heavily, but I do think it's interesting, and I'll see kind of long term how this plays out because it is changing. I think
Yeah.
everyone's aspect on adult work and
And it'll be interesting to see what spreads from it because I mean, it's grown a lot over the last year or so, but it's still somewhat in its infancy compared to something like Patreon or
yeah.
all the other new
Oh
ones
yeah,
that
for
are out
sure.
these days that are the same thing.
Yeah, no, it will be, and it may be where they have their own issues eventually with how they handle certain creators or certain
Yeah. Certain
items.
content.
Yeah, I know they got a lot of pushback with like Bella Thorne coming onto the platform, but that was more towards hey, stay away, celebrities.
Yeah. That was
But
all the other creators that had an issue with
yeah,
them coming on and taking all the spotlight.
but I think your celebrities are seeing the benefit of YouTube and
Yeah.
Twitch and all
A
of
lot of
these
them.
streaming sites that then OnlyFans the same boat. So
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that has increased over the pandemic too, because there were people like
oh,
Will Smith that started getting on YouTube well before that. But I wonder how many. I guess I don't really watch a lot of celebrities on YouTube because it seems counterintuitive to me for some reason. Like I'm looking for alternative content when I'm on the platform
I w-
usually.
one recommendation if you haven't, Kevin James, his YouTube channel is
Yeah,
hilarious.
really.
He does this skit where he is a mic man on TV sets, and so like he did one for like Country for Old Men, and so it's the movie playing out, but he's playing the
Yeah,
sound man and like answering. It's hilarious. So I don't
I'll have to
watch
look
many
into that.
celebs. Like all like Will Smith's will be trending, and I'll click on it and watch it. But
Yeah,
other than that, I don't go seek celebrities just because I don't feel like it's as genuine as some.
yeah, I agree.
And so, but like Kevin James, you can see it's him creating this content, not a team or he may have a team helping him, but I feel like it's like comedians are a little bit different breed where it's
Yeah,
they're thinking up of the type of stuff. So
yeah. I think that's interesting in general. Plus, we're moving to the point where celebrities are born from YouTube
oh
itself
yeah,
and these other websites. So
yep.
it's an
It,
interesting hybrid there.
it's more of the crossover between hey, I want you on my TV show, like David Dobrik has
Yeah,
that Discovery Channel dodgeball,
yeah,
which don't know how it's doing, but I've never watched it. But it's the mainstream pulling in these YouTube celebrities that came from that world. So
yeah. And that's been happening more and more. So
yeah, it's interesting. So
yeah,
final thoughts on that? Go watch Kevin James. He does not have an
yeah.
OnlyFans that I know of. So
Not yet, at least.
exactly, I would watch it. If you want to jump into your topic, Ray.
Yeah, I mean, mine's fairly short, um, mostly because I couldn't find a whole lot of information about it, which is weird. So this whole election cycle, I feel like has been ridiculous as far as ads and advertisements in physical form. Um, Almost every single day, I'm getting someone walking
Physical or
around the
virtual?
neighborhood, physical.
Okay.
So we're getting all kinds of people walking around the neighborhoods lately, leaving door tags and stuff like that for candidates and political information and stuff like that. And then in addition to that, almost every day I'm getting probably 5 to 10 pieces of paper that are ads for different candidates or
Wow.
political action committees or all kinds of stuff like that. It's come from everywhere. And so I was trying to do some research on this because in my opinion, between that and the signs that get put up on the roads and all that kind of stuff that's physically related to campaign
Mm-hmm.
ads and stuff like that, I was wondering how much waste that creates every year. And so I was trying to do research on that and see if anyone has done any studies to see how many pounds or even just individual pieces get sent out over a major election cycle like this. And
Mm-hmm.
I could not find any hard information on that. The only thing I found with any real numbers I mean, it was a fairly short search. I haven't exhausted Google or anything like that
Yeah.
looking for this, but uh, this article is from 2014. And so it's a mid cycle campaign in Maryland. So it's all local candidates. Um, they mention here that it was for primaries, so not even general elections. and it wasn't a major presidential election, and there was no major Senate elections going on at that time. So this is like all local politics. And so they said during the primary election season, they were getting ads. They saved them all, and it totaled 4.3 pounds or 139 individual pieces of mail. And so that's just
Jeez.
for a small mid cycle election.
Wow.
And I haven't kept mine. I really wish I would have now that I've been
Looking
looking
back
into
at
this
it,
more. Yeah,
doing a study. Wow.
because I know for sure I've probably filled my recycling bin up once over just with political campaign ads in
Is it?
paper form.
Do you feel like it's more local than you do the national election,
Yeah, I mean,
like the
maybe
presidential?
3% of the ads that we've gotten are for presidential
Yeah.
candidates. The rest, it's mostly just local candidates, which is understandable to an extent. They don't have the budget for TV ads and online ads that a presidential campaign is going to have.
Yeah.
Plus, their race generally, in the public's opinion, would take a back seat to presidential election.
Yeah.
Everyone sees presidential elections as more important, so you get more of these paper ads for local candidates.
Yeah.
But but I mean their 139 individual piece quote surprised me because I feel like I've gotten three times that amount
That's
just for
crazy.
this election
That's.
cycle.
But you look at it, and even half that is still with how many people there are, how many houses there are. That's a ridiculously
Yeah,
large number, no
that's
matter
yeah,
what.
that's just me. So I mean, if
Yeah.
you average it across the millions of people that live in the Phoenix metro area, I mean, we're talking tons of paper waste possibly,
Yeah.
especially if you factor in the paper slash plastic waste that the signs create
Yep.
on every single major intersection corner and stuff like that. It blows my mind that these candidates are doing stuff like that, and we haven't transitioned to digital only means of advertising in 2020, especially with everything that's been going on. Everything's moving digital, and yet I'm still getting all these paper ads. And so there's an expense related to that.
Yep.
And of course, the cities and states have to take that expense on, not the candidates, not the political campaigns. And I feel like these candidates and campaign managers should be somewhat
Responsible.
responsible for sharing some of that cost.
Yeah.
Not all of it's getting recycled. I know plenty of people just throw that away, so it ends up
I
in a
do.
landfill.
Yep. That's really interesting, and that's something that you kind of look at. The kind of two pieces to it. One, the majority of your candidates are going to be older candidates. Kind of, that's politics.
Yeah,
I know they have a full team of social media managers and all of that, but you wonder how much of it is inexperience in the disconnect between age gap and you know media today versus it was
yeah.
10 years ago.
And
um,
I think it does have a little bit to do with target audience too.
yeah.
The I know the median age in Phoenix is probably higher than some of the younger cities
Hmm.
in the United States. I mean, with it being a big college town included in Phoenix metro area, I don't think the median age is necessarily that old. I don't have statistics for any of that
Yeah.
right now, but I know that some of these campaigns are doing more paper mail just to get to that older subset of voters who are going to get their information that way instead of trying to find it online. But still, like, just the amount, it's like the same ads over and over and over again, too. So it's not like I'm getting one or two of these in election cycle. It's every 3 days I'm getting the same ad.
That's crazy to me. And what's it's crazy to me too is that it's not the sad thing is too, part of their ads, they're not going to sway your mind.
No, that's
Especially the
what,
first time, it's like, okay, I didn't know about this candidate, let me look into him, but not
yeah,
enough to be, oh, they sent me a mailer, I'm going to vote for him now.
yeah. And I know I've taken enough political science classes to know that name recognition is the biggest reason people send out these mailers and put up the signs.
Hmm.
So a lot of these, even though they're arguably more important than the presidential election, depending on who you're talking to, local candidate elections just don't get as much buzz. People don't research them as much. So they're hoping for that name recognition. When someone goes to the polls, they're going to vote for who they want as president and vice president, and then they're going to vote on the propositions that they've heard about, and then all of this other huge list of names that they have no relation to, no research into. They're hoping that that their name is going to stick out in those ballots, and
Yeah,
those people are going to vote for that just on name
yeah,
recognition alone. And I know it works. That's the reason they keep doing it. So many people are swayed by that.
yeah. It's almost
That
brainwashing
it
because
is.
you don't know enough about. But I've heard that name before.
Yep. And so they say they associate it with
Yeah,
just familiarity, and so they're more willing to write that name down or check that box than other candidates.
yeah,
But it is crazy how people can be swayed by that also, because most of these ads don't have any information on them about the candidate.
yeah.
They're almost always opposition ads about what
Of
another
course.
candidate is not doing, or
Yeah,
what they've done in the past that doesn't align with, what's best for people in the state.
yeah. I
It's
will
all kinds of stuff
say,
like that.
I didn't even think about that, and in the state of Utah where I'm at, I'm in an apartment, so
Yeah,
my mail I don't think I see as much of, if I were to be in a house.
yeah,
Um, but from that, I haven't seen that drastic of a, mailers. The big thing for me this year has been the every single app or social media or even
yeah,
non-social media apps that are telling me to vote, go out and vote, register to vote, which I don't mind. But the thing is, when I mark the X, it says, okay, I don't want
yeah,
to look at this anymore. That's when it's done for me on that
yeah,
app, not what they're doing now, where it's every time I open that app, it's
yeah,
there.
yeah. I found that
It's
super annoying.
like if I didn't, wasn't planning on voting, or like I was on the fence and I was like maybe not. It would almost get to the point where I'm like, screw this. This is just
Yeah,
annoying now. Like, and I'm sure you feel the same when it's you
yeah,
see all these mailers. It's like, okay, this
yep.
is just annoying. Stop.
And it some of it honestly, there is the name recognition aspect, but a lot of it also makes me not want to vote for these people that I'm constantly getting ads for,
Yeah,
on the sole foundation of I haven't looked into some of them enough to know what their environmental outlook is, but if any of them are pushing for any kind of environmental reform but sending out literal tons of paper waste in the mail,
yeah,
it's so counterintuitive that you can just chalk it up to the typical election promises that are never going to
yeah,
come into fruition. But I do think that whole social media banner about registering to vote pulls in another aspect of this argument that I was considering for this week, and that's just plain voter apathy. There are
yeah,
so many people out there that have become so overwhelmed with the choices and not being able to do enough research for candidates and stuff like that, that they do then in turn choose not to vote versus making their voice heard, which people can argue one way or another. It's not necessarily a bad thing not to vote, but you should always it's more important to be an informed voter than it is to just go out and vote. So
yeah, yeah. No,
I
and
think it does push some people away, though, that might be more informed than other people that just don't want to vote based on principle now because they're tired of hearing it.
yeah, no, it's 100% accurate. Like I said, I get annoyed now just seeing these ads, and I couldn't imagine if I was actually doing you know full on deep dives into these candidates that I had no idea about. If I was somebody kind of coming new into politics that was trying to find information, it's just a
Yeah,
plethora of one, is it right information, but
yeah,
two, everyone has their own opinion, and so it's like, who do you trust? This one
yeah,
said this one says this one had a good point, this one didn't. There's so much out there now that it's becoming where it. But at the end of the day, sometimes it is too. What we saw last year. It's became a contest of popularity contest kind
and
of at
it is.
some point.
That's what most elections are, and that's why they rely so heavily on the name recognition
Yeah,
to sway uninformed voters to vote for their way just because they've seen their name more.
yeah. No, it's crazy to me. But I kind of getting back to your topic. It would be kind of interesting. Maybe that's something we can bring up next week in our kind of meeting intros.
Yeah,
Just kind of going
if I can
over.
if I can find anything on it.
Well, what
I
would
mean,
be interesting too to look at is the cost of paper, like the creation of these ads,
yeah,
to then how much the creation of a Facebook ad is for a
yeah,
politician. Because I would think right there alone, and I know demographic and all of that, but you're still, for say like your area that you live in, the age group is at the age group that political person is looking for, or is it
Yeah.
somewhere where they're they could target their the other areas more
Yeah.
to make more sense? And that it would be interesting to kind of dive into cost methods of both as well,
Yeah.
because part of it too is it could be okay. Facebook's charging way too much, like especially with the general election going on. There's no way my stuff's going to be seen, so I got to go pay
Yeah.
for.
Exactly.
There's kind of multiple facets there, but it would be interesting to kind of pull data from each area.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how that spending has shifted over the years because of the rise in digital technology and phones and social media and stuff like that. I wonder how much budget that would have gone into grassroots campaigning, paper ads, signs, and TV ads. I wonder how much of that has transitioned into solely digital ads,
Mm-hmm.
other methods of advertisement like that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to see a candidate that raises all this money for campaigning and then puts out one video for like 5 minutes and then uses all that money to start building schools in all these cities or something like that. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I get it, but it'd be nice to genuinely see someone that is trying to help versus
yeah, it's trying to make a change.
yeah. So
Also, I wish people would advertise more information based
yep,
stuff. It's so easy to make a headline, but I would be more apt to sit down and read a paper advertisement that I got if it breaks down their positions on different societal issues and,
oh
just issues in general versus a headline that this is what they're for. And then I have to go and do all my own research on them to see if that's right or wrong.
yeah,
I'd rather just get not fancy looking, not colorful, not
yeah, yep.
photogenic ad
Put it on your
if it was
fridge
just
and look at
facts.
it over
Yeah,
constantly and just go okay,
because
I like that, don't like that.
amongst all of those ads that I've gotten that don't have any real information, I've only gotten two pamphlets. One from Arizona Clean Elections, which is required in the state for them to send that out with information on the propositions and candidates. It's just short
Yeah,
blurbs about everything. And then one was a independent research firm that sent out something similar, but it was more in depth on the candidates and just had their positions. So those are great, but I've only gotten two of those, and I've gotten thousands of other pieces of mail.
yeah, that's crazy. I haven't seen it, so totally different, but
Yeah,
it's definitely interesting to kind of see where everything is right now, and like you said,
yeah,
right, name recognition playing such a huge part in who
and
people vote for.
it does seem worse this year, and I've moved between the last election and this election, so it could have something to do with the demographic that I'm in now, being more apt to paper mail working versus where I was at before. But this definitely seems like the election cycle where I've gotten the most junk mail like that
Yeah,
as compared to previous. I mean, the last presidential election, I was getting mail, but it was like once or twice a week. I would notice it in my
yeah.
mail and toss it out versus literally every day this time.
Well, and could be kind of too how politics is seen now with how Trump's handled
Yeah.
his position in power is, you know, you kind of get to pick and choose what you can do now. There's no more ethics necessarily that everyone
Yeah.
has to play by. So, could also be just bombard them. That's all we need.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
not saying everyone does that, but I'm just saying that it's kind of changed how everyone can do now.
Yeah. It
So,
has. I think it's been slowly moving that direction over the last, I don't know, since I started voting in
yeah, no, it's
08.
definitely, and I think
It's
social
gone
media has
more and more
helped
that
with
way.
that. To you instantly get information out there. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be uh, combed through or sent out or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just instant. So,
It's just, I mean, if we want to end it with a different note, this is why it's important for people to do their own
yep,
research
one
because
hundred
there,
percent.
to tie it into last week, like we were talking about, there is so much suppression of different opinions on social media because they're private firms that the powers that be can handle them however they want. There's a lot of suppression of information and opinions out there, so people just need to do their best to look at multiple sources before they come to a conclusion on anything.
100%. I think that's a great note, and I think
Yeah.
that's a great note to end on. I think we're a little early, not too far early, but we'll blame all this on Tanner.
Yeah.
Um,
It'd be nice to have a third topic, right?
yeah, I would give him a call once again, but he's not going to be coherent. um, no, but we appreciate you guys stopping by, listening to this week's episode. I think this is number 6. Once again, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all of the other podcast websites. So make sure you go check those out. Once again, we got a Twitter, Instagram, other social medias to follow. So make sure you go give us a follow there. We'll be updating with podcasts and maybe some other fun things that we kind of talked about doing. Not only just podcasts, so make sure you go check that out. But once again, subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow, comment, and we appreciate you guys' time.